It's the 3 on PLAXtv.
Yeah. What's good, y'all? It's your boy PLAX9 back with another episode of the 3 on PLAXtv. And in this episode, I am talking about Rick Barry, actually. For those of you who don't know who Rick Barry is, he was a superstar player in the 70s. I believe he got drafted in the 60s, but his prime was in the 70s. And he was really good. He won, I know he won one championship for sure. He might have won two. He played for the Golden State Warriors. They might not have, were they Golden State at the time? I think they were. Golden State at the time, and I know for sure he won one championship for him, and he might have won two, and he was a superstar level player, a good scorer. He was the guy that made the grandma shot popular. He wasn't the first one to do it, but he was the first person to do it in that time period in an actual NBA game, you know, but that's beside the point. So I want to say like a week or a couple weeks ago, Rick Barry made a comment. I don't know why he made the comment, but he made a comment that him, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and guys like that, if they had the same benefits that guys today had, they would be just as good as those guys or even better. And I have to say wholeheartedly, I agree with Rick Barry. I think he's right to a certain extent. Guys back in the day, up until like what, the mid to late 2000s, really, if we being completely honest, maybe the late 90s or mid 90s it got better, but for the most part, guys didn't have like dietitians and masseuses and trainers and cooks and stuff unless they paid for it themselves, and like all this like medicine and stuff like that. Like back in the day in the 70s, if you tore your ACL or broke your leg, your career was over. Like you were done. You'd be lucky if you'd be able to walk and or walk properly after that. Like you were, it was devastating. You were done. Nowadays, if you tear your ACL or break your leg or something like that, it's still bad, but people are like, you know, you have a chance to come back. Like as long as you do the right things, you rehab properly, the surgery goes well, you have a chance to come back. You may not be exactly the same, but you'll be able to play at a high level and contribute to a team. You might have to change your game a little bit depending on who you were. But for the most part, you have a chance to come back and play in the NBA in some capacity. Like Paul George. I can't remember exactly the details of Paul George's injury, but Paul George fucked his shit up in the Olympics, the Olympic practices and stuff like that. He broke his leg. And Paul George came back from that injury like in a year from the injury, and he was basically the same Paul George. I didn't really see too much fall off from him. He was the same Paul George. You could even argue he was better because in OKC he was an MVP candidate. You know what I'm saying? So you could argue that Paul George got better coming back from the injury. Now you could say, you know, maybe he had to work on different stuff to get to that point, but he's still relatively athletic. Shifty, can shoot the ball well, still a really good defender. You know, Paul George came back and was relatively fine. You do have like cases like Derrick Rose where, you know, he wasn't exactly the same when he came back, but D Rose was still able to come back and have a sustainable career as a starter and a six man. Like D Rose almost won 6 man of the year a couple times. He scored 50 in a game one time in Minnesota, and that was post, you know, ACL injury. So that's definitely a huge difference. Just the medicine alone, the surgeries. In the 70s, they didn't have any groundbreaking, you know, medicine or surgery or anything like that. You broke your leg, you got hurt real bad, you were basically done. And I agree with Rick Barry to a certain extent, right? This only applies to the very best guys back in the day in the 70s, right? Because like if you've watched the three before, I've talked about the 70s. I might do a full video on like just talking about that. But in the 70s, guys were like doing coke at halftime. Guys were drunk on the bench. Like some guys were not taking, a lot of guys were not taking the league seriously, besides a select few that were able to dominate and make things happen. This was just like from 68, 69 to 79, I'd say. Because once Magic and Bird came, the league changed. It was still some guys doing those things, but it started to diminish as the league got more popular. You know what I'm saying? Because in the 70s, the NBA was done. Like, the NBA was about to be, like, disbanded for the most part. But certain guys in the 70s, like Rick Barry and Big O and Jerry West and Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes and guys like that, DJ Bill Walton, guys like that would most definitely benefit from the benefits that the league has today. And I'm very sure that they would be able to dominate, at the very least be all-stars or at the very least be starters. But I just don't think that applies to everybody just because how the league was. The league was in a very bad spot in the 70s. Like, this was post Boston Dynasty era, and it was just, you had good guys. You had Kareem, you had Rick Barry, you had certain people, Wes Unseld, you had certain people that were really good, but it just wasn't exciting, and the league was just in a bad spot because it was just so bad. People was fighting and getting high and doing drugs and stuff like that. So I think the majority of the league might not be able to do that, but the very best of the best, like the top 25 to 30 guys definitely would be able to play now with the benefits that they have now. Like, if you gave them those benefits and brought them to today's game, they would definitely benefit well from that and be able to play. But that's only the top 25. He could have meant that, but that's just not what the quote said. And I just kind of wanted to counter that just a little bit, because I do agree. Like, Big O is one of my favorite basketball players ever. I think Big O doesn't get the respect that he deserves and that some other point guards get. It could be mostly because he didn't win a whole bunch of championships. He only got, what did he get? I think he only got one. I think he only got one with Milwaukee with Kareem. So I think that's part of it. But you also got to remember, like, a big part of his prime was the Boston Dynasty era, the Wilt Chamberlain dominating era. Like, he didn't really have a chance. It was like on his teams, it was him and him and him. like that was it. Like, he didn't really have teams like, the Lakers put together. Like, the Lakers had Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich, and all those guys, and then they added Wilt onto the team. The Celtics just bringing in great guys, Hall of Famers, Dave Cowens and John Havlicek and Bill Russell and Bob Cousy, just Sam Jones, JoJo White, just recycling guys in and out. Like, one guy retires, it's a new guy taking his spot. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they were able, part of the reason why they were able to sustain winning for so long. Big O just, he a lot of guys wasn't able to win. Like in the 90s with Jordan, like, a lot of guys didn't win championships because MJ was just dominating, and some guys deserved championships or more championships or whatever the case may be. They just wasn't able to do it because MJ dominated that decade, and then came in the middle there and dominated for a couple years, and it was just tough. It was tough to make certain things happen, and some greats just didn't get championships. Big O did get one, but I don't think that's enough when you compare him to, like, Steph Curry and Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, guys with multiple championships. But I kind of went to different places here, but the bottom line is I do agree with Rick Barry to a certain extent. There's a cutoff to that truth that he had. Like, it's only 25, maybe 30 guys that will benefit from today's, advancements in technology and medicine and training and all that stuff. 25, 30 guys will be able to take that and just be better. I think the rest of the league in the 70s wouldn't be able to capitalize on that because they were so focused on the wrong stuff that I think even now they would still be focused on the wrong stuff, because you even got players now that are focused on the wrong things. They're just so physically gifted and talented because they've been playing basketball since they was 6 years old that sometimes it doesn't affect them as much as it probably affected the guys back in the day. Like you got Zion and John Morant and guys like that just making bad decisions and doing shit they shouldn't be doing, and it might get them off the court and affect them getting on the court, but it doesn't affect their ability per se. You know what I'm saying? But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you guys like me to do a video about like the 70s and just the change from back in the day to now? And just because I was thinking about doing a certain video like that, because there's certain things that kind of shocked me when you talk about the comparisons between, you know, old school basketball and today's basketball. So I may do a video on that. Let me know if you guys would like to see something like that. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you ding that notification bell so you know every time I drop a video. And most of all, YouTube, I love you guys. Peace out.
It's the 3 on PLAXtv.